Can you exercise during a dry fast? The easiest way to look at it is that you can do light exercise on a dry fast, but to avoid everything that is strenuous and makes you sweat. Let's look at some examples and explanations for different situations. If you've ever thought about exercising during your dry fast, you need to listen. Welcome to the Dry Fasting Club and the beautiful world of dry fasting. I'm Yannick Wolf, and I hope to be able to guide you on your dry fasting journey. Please be advised that none of this is medical advice, but strictly informational. This information is drawn from a cohort of 20 to 40-year-olds, so it may not be a good representation for older and sicker fasters. It also assumes that you have the discipline to adhere to proper preparation, dry fasting principles, and refeeding. Nevertheless, all of this information can be used as supplemental research in your journey. Make sure you join the dry fasting Discord and Twitter groups to keep up with the latest information and to engage with other dry fasters. Once again, you can find all of this on dryfastingclub.com, where you can sign up, and if this information is helpful to you, you can even choose to subscribe to help out. Now, exercising during a dry fast. Exercise and sweating are a no-no during a dry fast. You are already undergoing arguably one of the hardest things in the world, food and water deprivation. There's a reason people are terrified of dry fasting. To be fair, people are terrified of water fasting as well, but many pleb minds go into shock when thinking about also depriving themselves of water. I mean, 3 days without water means you can die, right? Wrong, but the 3-day idea starts to make sense if you consider someone sweating profusely from overexertion while dry fasting. Just imagine someone on a pilgrimage and not drinking water. You can start to see why the 3-day without water myth has some basis in fact. The body actually creates metabolic water, and you can read about this and learn about this from a post called Metabolic Water and Fasting that you can find on the dryfastingclub.com. So this metabolic water is what allows us to dry fast for periods of 7 to 11 days, depending on fat storage. There are reports of people going longer than 11 days, and some crazy people have done it, but it is a bit irresponsible. Some diseases are so pervasive that you'll do anything to try to get rid of them, including attempting to break dry fasting records to dehydrate the parasite's bacteria or viral persistence. Keep in mind that people posting absurd numbers, absurd claims, may be lying or even over-exaggerating. Many people in the Dry Fasting Club Discord, for example, claim to do 15 to 21 day dry fasts. But when pressed about it, you find out that they actually take a water fast day in between to reset, or maybe small sips of water with some minerals at certain moments throughout the fast. They still claim that it is a dry fast, which confuses others into thinking that they had not ingested any water. So this article is not meant to dive into the efficacy of small amounts of water consumption while dry fasting, since that is a topic on its own. The point I'm trying to make is that to be safe, please be aware that exercising may put you into a big water deficit that even metabolic water can't supplement correctly. This can put you into a dangerous level of dehydration and cause net negative effects in the long run. Now let's talk about exercise during the first day of a dry fast. So exercise during the post-absorptive phase makes sense. That's the first phase of fasting. But strenuous exercise will strain your body and usually affect the length of the fast and how long you can go. You can find more information about the post-absorptive phase and all phases of fasting in an article called Fasting Mechanisms. And you can find that on the dryfastingclub.com. So the post-absorptive phase is actually around 24 hours from the moment you stop eating. This phase is when liver uses up a lot of its glycogen stores. About 75% of glucose is supplied from the liver. This is why you can see such drastic weight decreases after the first 24 hours of dry fasting. This weight decrease is also seen in water fasting, but you get to replenish your water reserves constantly, so that drop is much less pronounced when you're water fasting. So why does this happen? Well, 1 gram of glycogen is usually attached to 3 grams of water, sometimes even more. So while your body is still topped off with extra water reserves, because you still have some glycogen, working out makes sense, even semi-exhaustive exercise. So you can kind of push it on that first day. It will speed up your glycogen loss and force faster ketogenesis. So those are the benefits of actually doing it. Finding the right balance is difficult, as your window starts to drastically close after 18 hours, give or take. Intense sweating is still not recommended because you're putting too much stress on your internal water reserves. Yes, if you're doing 1-day dry fasts, you can play around with this and push some limits. It's what boxers do before a weigh-in. They'll dry fast for 24 hours while sitting in the sauna. They're pushing their bodies to the limit so that they can make weight for their next fight. Afterwards, they'll quickly refeed and rehydrate and suddenly jump 10 to 15 pounds overnight. A term for this is called death fasting, and you may have heard of it, specifically made popular by Cole Robinson from the Snake Diet. And there's a reason they call it death fasting. So maybe let's not incorporate it into a longer dry fast. How about exercise during the dry fast preparation period? So this is just before the dry fast. So exercise before the fast helps lower glycogen quicker and enter ketosis faster. If too much though, you will enter dehydration, as your body needs to enter an acidotic crisis to start burning fat at the level it needs to produce adequate metabolic water. This means that you need to get into a certain level of the fast to start producing good amounts of metabolic water. In the early days, you are not producing enough. This is the approach that I use to hack faster and more intense benefits. If you read the Scorch protocol, you'll see that I advise a carnivore/zero carb approach during the preparation, which involves a lot of protein but no carbs. This gives you a running start when you enter the dry fast by putting you into ketosis faster and draining hepatic glucose faster. So that's your liver glycogen. The benefit of exercising during the preparation period before the dry fast is that you are able to drink water to keep your reserves up. You still take in protein to heal your muscles and preserve them, and you are able to ingest salts/electrolytes that may be lost during sweating and water dumping. Exercising before the dry fast while doing a zero carb diet also dumps additional water, since you are losing glycogen and at a faster rate. It's much more similar to a water fast without the nutrient loss, so like an even better water fast. If you've been reading my posts for a while, you'd know that I had been a water faster for over 10 years. But since finding dry fasting, water fasting can kick rocks. Water fasting is simply now a tool for me to prepare my body to transition to dry fasting. It's also a tool for those that are too weak to dry fast, maybe from intense illnesses or contraindications. And it's also a tool for gently exiting the fast, a dry fast specifically. How about exercise after you dry fast and during the refeeding period? So I have tested this and talked to others who have also attempted to work out after the dry fast. The longer you have dry fasted, the more dehydrated your body is and the thicker your blood. Ketones also have an inhibitory effect on glycogen uptake by the muscles. Remember this. And as a side note, your muscle is one of the major extrahepatic metabolic tissues that actually store glycogen. So glycogen is mostly stored in the liver, and in the second most place is your muscles. With increasing levels of depleted glycogen, the deeper you get into a dry fast, your muscles are not ready for intense exercise for at least a few days afterward. There are a lot of people that have caused injuries to their muscles after trying to work out too quickly after a dry fast. You need to slowly refeed and replenish your glycogen stores. This is also why carbs are necessary during the refeed, but notice I don't like them during the preparation. This is an area that I have pivoted with more experience and research. Turns out Filinov figured this out already, and why having over 30 years of patient experience is so powerful. I used to believe that going ketogenic after the dry fast helped prolong the healing effects and allowed you to kick the carb addiction as well as help with viral diseases. Even though it most likely prolongs the autophagic aspect of a fast, which can help in certain situations, stem cells and muscles require glycogen. There are also parts of the body like the erythrocytes, which are your red blood cells, a lot of brain areas, your testicles and kidneys that only run on glucose. So when your body is restarting, your muscles and other areas will be asking for that glucose, but you won't be producing enough with gluconeogenesis to supply everything to everyone. Remember, you're also rebuilding blood cells and a lot of tissues and cells that were eaten during the dry fast. Your red blood cells and stem cells won't get the required dose to properly heal and proliferate. This is a big aspect that is being ignored by a lot of people, and it is not taken into consideration by most dry fasting veterans. I go into this in more detail in the Scorch protocol for long COVID, and with time, I'll update all the protocols with more defined and clear information. Also, side note, please don't drink baking soda after a dry fast during the refeed. This should only be done in acidic emergencies. Bicarbonate is also known as HCO3. It's a byproduct of your body's metabolism. Your blood brings bicarbonate to your lungs, and then it is exhaled as carbon dioxide. Your kidneys also help regulate bicarbonate. Drinking baking soda disrupts a natural balance in your body. So if you are listening to Dunning or Trevor, think twice about it. Dunning tried to use a scientific hypothesis and included baking soda. And then people like Trevor and others who read his book copied him without asking any questions. We've evolved over millions of years, and the body maintains good homeostasis involving bicarbonate. No need to throw it off balance. Also, it contains sodium, which is the Na part of sodium bicarbonate, which we know we don't want for a few days after the fast, since it will cause you to bloat and hold on to more water due to the renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system. And just so you know, once you start to bloat and your body really starts to hold on to that excess sodium during the first days after the fast, it's really hard to lose that water weight. Now let's talk about exercise by walking during a dry fast. So walking is great. Walking too much during a dry fast can be scary, but no walking at all is bad for both mental and lymph clearing. Read more about it on an article on the dryfastingclub.com called Mental State and Dry Fasting. So Filinov actually says in his book, and I quote, "You need to know that the body requires 3 times as much fresh air when fasting. Do take walks. When you feel weak and nauseous and want to stop the fast, fight fire with fire. Move around and walk a lot. Physical activity makes all the organs and muscles work, pumps the blood around, and quickens the cleansing." So walking helps with lymph clearing, which is super important during a dry fast, especially since your blood thickens as your water concentration slowly drops. This water decrease is a vital part of why dry fasting provides such powerful healing. It's called a hyperosmotic environment and is critical to activating things like microtubule repair. Let's also not forget that there is a correlation between aging and increased cellular dead water as well as lipofuscin. Both of these, I believe, are targeted during dry fasting, which causes an anti-aging rejuvenation effect. Not many people are aware of this. When you get to remove this heavy toxic water, which is also composed of deuterium, you get to replace it with deuterium depleted water. So our cells naturally produce deuterium depleted water from our fat cells. Our foods contain different ratios of deuterium, with higher latitudes having less deuterium. This is important because higher latitudes get less sunlight, an important factor for health. If we had less sunlight and higher deuterium food, we'd be in a bit of a pickle. There's just a bit of a side note about deuterium and the different latitudes. I've experimented with doing a 200-hour dry fast, isolated indoors while stuck in a room. I have a video on it that you can look up. It was the hardest fast for me mentally because I did not get to go on walks. I did yoga and stretching for lymph movement and circulation, but there was a missing aspect, and I attribute it to not being in nature. In fact, a Japanese study looked at the benefits of forest walking in a study called Effects of Forest Bathing Trips on Human Immune Function. So in this study, participants took 3 days, 2 nights forest trips, and their blood and urine were tested during and after their trips. Tests focused on natural killer cell activity and other immune system markers, as well as stress hormone levels. Results showed that forest bathing significantly increased natural killer cell activity and other immune markers while reducing stress hormone levels. During a dry fast, we already know that our stress hormone levels are skyrocketing. It's part of the process, but being able to control it and lower them is a big tool in our arsenal. And the immune boosting effects from the forest walking lasted for over 30 days, suggesting that a monthly forest trip could help maintain better immune function. However, city visits did not provide the same benefits. It's pretty crazy. So now we can see that walking, especially walking in a forest or just in nature, is so important during a dry fast. If you are pushing your next dry fast, try and keep this in mind and try and schedule a lot of walks. Wrapping this up with some main insights. Not only does walking help with mood, better air quality, light exposure, and lymph circulation, in fact, it shows that it boosts the immune system markers. Since one of the most important aspects of fasting is the revitalization of your immune system, we should take every immune boosting benefit seriously. It's also why I'm a big proponent of cold plunges during a dry fast. I used to believe that hard dry fasting was the strongest and best fast, but I've upgraded recently to include cold plunges. Without going into too much detail, look out for a cold plunge tutorial with a dry fasting article soon. Warm or tepid water on an extended dry fast is worse as it promotes water absorption and disruption of a lot of dry fasting benefits, while cold water constricts the cells and minimizes absorption, while at the same time increases lymph movement and blood flow, which translates to better nutrient and energy distribution. If this doesn't make a lot of sense to you, keep an eye out for that cold plunge article, which is going to go into a lot more detail. Also, warning, do not cold plunge or take cold showers during the refeed. That's bad news. All right, well, that's it for this episode. You can find the links in the show notes. And as always, good luck on your dry fasting journey, and I'll see you in the next one.